Canada has just unlocked more than $1 billion in just a few days. Meanwhile, Ottawa is playing a dangerous trade chess game with Washington. Two major decisions that will impact your wallet, your investments, and the Canadian economy for years to come. Today, we're breaking down two hot issues from February 2026, the mega emergency loan to Canada Post, which reveals a crisis far deeper than what's being reported, and the Carney government's risky trade strategy in response to American tariffs. No fluff, just facts, just numbers, just concrete analysis to understand what's really happening in the Canadian economy right now. Let's get started. The announcement and the numbers. On February 7, 2026, the federal government confirmed a new injection of liquidity to Canada Post. The exact amount, $1.01 billion. But be careful, this isn't free money. It's a repayable loan disbursed as needed over the next 12 months. First thing to understand, this isn't the first loan. In January 2025, just over a year ago, Ottawa had already injected $1.034 billion into the Crown Corporation. We're talking more than $2 billion in 13 months to keep Canada Post afloat. Why does this matter to you? Because Canada Post isn't just any private company. It's a Crown Corporation funded by your taxes, employing over 50,000 people, and delivering to the most remote corners of the country. If it goes under, essential services disappear, especially in rural areas. The government presents this as a temporary financial bridge. The reality, it's a lifeline for an organization that has been piling up losses for years and would have run out of cash reserves before the summer of 2026 without this money. Why Canada Post is losing so much money? So how did a century-old institution end up here? Three main reasons. Reason number one, the collapse of traditional mail. Think about the last time you sent a handwritten letter. Exactly. Everything has gone digital. Emails, electronic bills, mobile notifications, postal mail volumes have plummeted dramatically over the past 15 years. And that was historically Canada Post's cash cow. Reason number two, fierce competition in parcels. Amazon has built its own delivery network. UPS and FedEx dominate express shipping. Canada Post has to fight for every contract, often slashing prices to stay competitive. Result? Even as parcel volumes rise, margins are crushed. Reason number three, enormous structural costs. Canada Post has a legal obligation to serve the entire Canadian territory. That means delivering to the far north, isolated villages, on roads impassable for 6 months of the year. It's noble, but economically unviable without subsidies. Add labor costs, collective agreements, maintenance of an aging national network, and you get a machine that's burning cash. Canada Post's cumulative deficit now runs into the billions. Without major reform, this hole will only get bigger. The loan conditions and restructuring. But Ottawa didn't just sign a blank check. The government set strict conditions. In exchange for these loans, Canada Post must submit and implement a radical transformation plan. This plan was filed at the end of 2025 with a clear goal: achieve budgetary balance by 2030. What does that mean concretely? First, the end of certain universal obligations. We're talking potentially reducing delivery frequency in some areas, closing unprofitable post offices, rethinking rural postal services. It's going to hurt politically, but it's inevitable. Second, network optimization. Increased automation, centralization of sorting centers, workforce reduction through natural attrition. Thousands of jobs could be indirectly affected. Third, revenue diversification. Canada Post is exploring new income sources, expanded postal banking services, partnerships with e-commerce platforms, logistics offers for SMEs. But nothing is guaranteed. The question everyone is asking, is achieving balance by 2030 realistic? Experts are divided. Some say it's doable if reforms are implemented quickly and without political compromise. Others think it's wishful thinking, and we'll see a third loan by 2027. What quote? Certain is that Canada Post is at a historic turning point. Either it reinvents itself, or it becomes a permanent financial drain on taxpayers. And that brings us to the second explosive issue this month, the trade war with the United States. Context of the tariff war. Since Donald Trump's return to the White House in January 2025, trade relations between Canada and the United States have become a minefield. Quick reminder, as early as spring 2025, Washington imposed massive tariffs on several Canadian sectors. We're talking 25% on steel and aluminum not compliant with USMCA rules, 10% on energy and potash, and constant threats on automobiles. Canada quotas reaction under Justin Trudeau. Immediate counter-tariffs. In March 2025, Ottawa hit tens of billions of dollars worth of American products with 25% surtaxes, consumer goods, precious metals, food products. The list was long and aggressive. The problem: this escalation hurt both sides. Canadian exporters lost contracts. American importers saw costs explode. Canadian consumers paid more for everyday products. Then Mark Carney came to power at the end of 2025. New Prime Minister, new approach. The strategic de-escalation of September 2025, September 1, 2025, marks a major turning point. The Carney government announces the removal of the majority of counter-tariffs imposed 6 months earlier. We're talking a massive reduction affecting tens of billions of dollars worth of American products. Why this reversal? First, a pragmatic approach. Carney knows Canada can't win a full-scale trade war against the United States. The Canadian economy depends on exports to the South for 75%. Continuing escalation would be economic suicide. Second comma, a political calculation. By removing most tariffs, Ottawa sends a good faith signal to Washington. It shows willingness to negotiate, not dig into a destructive spiral. But careful, this is crucial. Canada didn't abandon everything. Ottawa maintained targeted counter-tariffs on 3 strategic sectors: steel, aluminum, and automobiles. Why these 3 specifically? Because they are the sectors where the United States hits hardest and where Canada still has leverage. The sectors under tariffs and the logic behind them: steel and aluminum. The American 25% tariffs on these metals directly affect thousands of Canadian jobs in Ontario, Quebec, British Columbia. The Saguenay aluminum smelters, Hamilton steel mills, these are regional economic pillars. By maintaining 25% counter-tariffs on American steel and aluminum, Ottawa protects these industries and keeps a major negotiating card. The message to Washington: you hit us, we hit back where it hurts. The automotive sector. The auto industry represents hundreds of billions in cross-border trade. Supply chains are fully integrated. An engine can cross the border 4 times before being installed in a final vehicle. Canadian counter-tariffs on certain American vehicles and parts serve as a deterrent. If Washington wants to protect Detroit, it must negotiate with Ottawa. Otherwise, American manufacturers lose access to a market of 38 million Canadian consumers. Copper and a few other sensitive products. Less publicized but still strategic. Canada keeps leverage on raw materials and specific components where it has a comparative advantage. The strategy is clear: de-escalate across the entire commercial front, but maintain pressure on sectors where Canada can truly defend itself and where the United States has something to lose. Risks and outlook for 2026. Will it work? Honestly, no one knows. Negotiations between Carney and the Trump administration are intense but unpredictable. Optimistic scenario: Washington agrees to reduce its tariffs on steel, aluminum, and autos in exchange for a full withdrawal of Canadian counter-tariffs. We return to a situation close to the original USMCA, with perhaps some minor adjustments. Bilateral trade stabilizes, investments resume. Pessimistic scenario: Trump doubles down, new tariffs on other Canadian sectors. Ottawa has to retaliate again, but with fewer munitions. The Canadian economy enters a technical recession in Q2 2026. Companies relocate to Mexico or Asia. Most likely scenario: a shaky compromise. Tariffs remain partially in place but at reduced levels. USMCA exemptions are respected on 85 to 90% of trade. The rest is subject to endless sectoral negotiations. Not perfect but manageable. What to remember: Canada's playing an extremely risky game of chess. Too many concessions and we lose our manufacturing industry. Too much rigidity and we trigger a major economic crisis. Mark Carney is walking a tightrope. The coming months will be decisive. 2 issues. two crises. One reality, the Canadian economy is going through a period of major turbulence at the start of 2020. On one side, Canada posts surviving on public loan drips with an uncertain future and painful reforms ahead. More than $2 billion in 13 months, and probably not the last if the transformation fails. On the other, a trade war with our main economic partner forcing Ottawa to play tight. Massive de-escalation on most fronts but strategic maintenance of counter-tariffs on steel, aluminum and automobiles. A fragile balance that could tip at any moment. What does this mean for you? If you're an investor, keep a close eye on logistics, metals and automotive sectors. Volatility will continue. Stocks exposed to Canada-US trade will remain under pressure until negotiations conclude. If you're an entrepreneur, diversify your markets. Depending 100% on the United States is an existential risk in 2026. Explore Europe, Asia, Latin America. If you're an ordinary citizen, prepare for price impacts. Tariffs, even reduced, pass through to import costs. Inflation could stay stubborn longer than expected. The decisions made in Ottawa and Washington in the coming weeks will shape the Canadian economy for the next 5 years. Stay informed, stay critical, and above all, don't believe everything you're told in official statements. Numbers don't lie, but politicians love to embellish them. See you very soon to break down the next developments. Subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. See you soon.